Good morning, everyone, and welcome. My name is Alena Eising, and I am the librarian and curator for Slavic, East European, and Eurasian Studies at the International Department at the UCLA Library. And I'm delighted to welcome you to this special program featuring filmmaker and graphic novelist Roger Kupelian. This program was thoughtfully developed in collaboration with my colleague Nora Avetian, who serves as the Armenian and Persian cataloger at the UCLA Library. Together, we are proud to bring this important event to life. We would also like to extend our heartfelt appreciation to our sponsors, the UCLA Promise Armenian Institute and the Vende Museum. Your commitment to promoting Armenian culture and artistic expression is deeply valued. Thank you. We would like to respectfully acknowledge that UCLA is located on the traditional, ancestral, and unceded territory of the Gabrielino Tongva peoples. We honor their ongoing relationship to this land and express our gratitude for the opportunity to learn and gather here. Today's program is part of the UCLA Library series, Opening the Doors to Contemporary Literature. This highlights the voices of global authors and storytellers. We are especially proud to present it in celebration of Armenian History Month, honoring the rich heritage and artistic contribution of the Armenian community. Before we begin, I would also like to remind our virtual audience that captions are available on Zoom. You can access them by clicking on the CC button at the bottom of the screen. After today's presentation, we will open the floor for questions and answers, which will be moderated by my colleague Nora and myself. But first, it is my pleasure to invite Nora to the virtual stage to introduce our distinguished speaker, Roger Kupelian. Thank you again for joining us, whether from UCLA, across the United States, or internationally from Armenia and beyond.
Hello, everyone. My name is Nora Avetian. I'm the Armenian and Persian Catalog Librarian at UCLA's library. I have the great pleasure to introduce today's speaker, Mr. Roger Kupelian. Roger is a writer, director, painter, digital effects artist, and animator. But he's best known for his visual effects work on major films such as the Lord of the Rings trilogy, X-Men, and Iron Man. As a graphic novelist and creator of the East of Byzantium series, he has reimagined ancient Armenian history through richly illustrated and cinematic narratives. His creative projects blend historical research with immersive visuals and to reframe Armenian stories for contemporary audiences around the world. Thank you, Roger, for accepting our invitation for today's presentation. Please, the platform is yours. Thank you.
Thank you, Nora and Alina. Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity to be able to share something and on this Armenian History Month, and to UCLA for making that possible, and for everybody that's actually tuned in to watch this little presentation of mine. And I look forward to your questions afterwards. Well, without much further ado, what I'd like to do is start this little talk of mine. It's a PowerPoint presentation, and it's got some video clips in it. And afterwards, we are going to take questions, and I'll be able to answer your questions, especially people who are interested in what's going on with film and so on. I mean, it is a tumultuous time, and in many ways. So thank you so much for coming. I do appreciate you for honoring us and honoring me with your presence. It's not taken lightly, and I do ask that you think of whatever questions you have, and you can ask me later on. So without much further ado, I'm going to share my screen and start this presentation. Thank you. Okay, well, the first thing that we're going to do is I'm going to get rid of this. Sorry. I think you can all see that the barcode. So go ahead and get your phones out and go ahead and take a camera and snap that. That's going to take you to the link tree that I have set up, which will give you a bunch of valuable links that you'll see why I'm sharing this towards the end of the talk. So that's the barcode, QR code, actually, the QR code for the link tree that will accompany our special announcement at the end of this talk. So why don't you take a moment and do that? And once we're done, I'll move on with the presentation. Okay. I'm sure whoever's going to get that has got that. I'll bring that up again towards the end of the talk. Okay. So my little presentation is called The Magic Envelope. This is something that I gave for the first time during the ARPA Film Festival. I've since expanded it and added to it and added some more context and as well as some new developments and new special features and so on. I will not be doing a full presentation of full episodes or webisodes that we prepared because of just the amount of time. And the fact that we are going to be premiering these pretty soon means that we can save that for later. So this lecture is called The Magic Envelope, Achieving Your Passion Project with Hybrid Filmmaking. And it is a time for hybrid filmmaking. Now, I want you to take a good look at this image right here. Take a good look at the magic envelope. I'll explain what that is in a little bit. First, let's do my qualifications because, I mean, if you're going to sit there and listen to somebody talk, you might as well see that if you agree that that person is qualified to be taking up your time. So I've spent over 30 years on movies, TV, independent projects, music videos, and printed work. I started off in print, but always had a passion for film. And you might have seen this one. This is one of the first projects I worked on, Space Jam, the original. One of the biggest projects I worked on is the Lord of the Rings trilogy. I was in New Zealand for this one. I worked on all three of them. And I also appear on the special features section. If you watch the making of DVD on the Two Towers, you'll see me there, a much younger self with a little bit more hair. Younger, eager looking at the world. And then we have smaller projects, different kinds of projects like the Tragedy of Macbeth that just came out. That's one of the projects I'm really proud to have worked on. Actually working for another Lord of the Rings alumnus, Alex Lemke, who brought me on the project. I'm very thankful for that. But now you know who I am. Let me show you a little bit of another part of my background. Even before I got into film, I was an embedded journalist, embedded documentary filmmaker, I should say. During the wars in the Caucasus and when the Soviet Union fell apart in the 90s, I made a documentary called Dark Forest in the Mountains in 1994 and then revised it in subsequent years with better visual effects and editing and so on. And that's probably been pirated and some of you have seen it on YouTube. But we are going to be remastering that pretty soon given recent events. But that's also part of my background before I actually slipped into actual filmmaking. This is 2 years before I worked on Space Jam. Okay, so let's take a look at my demo reel. I'm not going to be playing any music because I'd like to talk through it. And so you might recognize some of these shots. I'm going to be showing you befores and afters for some of these shots. This is, of course, from the Lord of the Rings trilogy. I'm having the shot that almost made me quit the industry right here. But I think it turned out rather well. And I think you might recognize this one too. This one, they brought me back from my vacation to finish because the producing company didn't like it. But obviously we finished it properly. Yeah, this one was redone for the final release, but this is my version of it. Here is a shot from Flags of Our Fathers. Now you can see the before and after process of how we film it and then we fill it in to create a world that existed around the time of World War II when they were fundraising for the war effort. This is one of the projects I'm really proud to have worked on, directed by Clint Eastwood. And they filmed it in Iceland, but we had to make Iceland look like the island of Iwo Jima. They filmed this in Hawaii, but of course it had to look like somewhere else. This is from Hugo, 3D project, and the befores and afters, construction of the matte painting, and of course my matte painting also appears behind other projects. Now you're going to see a lot of these kinds of shots where I'm building the shot out, and then a compositor might come in and put them all together and make it look even better. This is for the one of the Terminator movies, making whatever the location they're in look like it actually fits in. So this is one of the shots here. Sometimes you're doing bits and pieces. You're contributing to parts of a project. Sometimes you're doing these master shots. And as the shots get more complicated, then there's more players involved. This is for Constantine, the one with Keanu Reeves. This is for Charlie Wilson's War. We had to create a Las Vegas of the 80s. One of my favorite projects to have worked on. We also had to create a bigger refugee camp. We had to create the Afghan village in the distance that was about to be attacked by the Soviet forces. And again, you're seeing the construction process there of creating a shot, added to a model shot that was put on top. This is from Cloverfield. Now, Cloverfield had to have a more handheld sort of look. I created a lot of these concept shots, and the production was so fast, sometimes they would take my concept shots and actually make them into the digital backdrops because it was just enough because of the way they were going to present this. This is from Alice in Wonderland. Some of the backgrounds I did there for Sony ImageWorks. And this is for one of the Men in Black movies. One of my favorite periods of history also, the whole space race, the 1960 space launch. From Oblivion. And this is, again, putting digital matte paintings. This was done with digital domain and, CG foreground. What I'm doing is I'm providing the backgrounds. And sometimes they would give me a camera and I would project the matte painting on top of it. So the actual shot would move. Now, I also work in television. And in television, although a lot of the equipment they're using is very similar on the base level to what films are doing, obviously the production schedule for doing commercials and so on is a lot faster, and we have to work. But it's the same principles, all right? So we're doing a car commercial over here, and this one is for Arnold Schwarzenegger, who was doing something about trying to get people not to eat that much meat because he became a vegetarian. This is for Call of Duty. Again, this was one of those things where, you work, I think this is a commercial for Kia Soul, when they start dancing afterwards, I guess. And this is for another Call of Duty. Creating a Las Vegas that's been destroyed. And this is the internet nightmare that we're experiencing right now. So anyway, I've also had to do hanging slabs of meat because the meat that was on set didn't look realistic enough. So we had to matte paint actual slabs of meat, so I guess you could say that I've pretty much done pretty much everything. So this is Arnold Schwarzenegger trying to get you to eat less meat because apparently meat's bad for people. All right, so that's my reel. And now I'm going to play you like a little teaser for the project that I'm going to be talking about today. Okay. And again, you can follow the link in the profile. That'll take you to the Instagram link tree if you want. But I'll be bringing that up again later. Okay. So, where do we all begin? We have a story inside all of us, especially if you're a filmmaker or you're creative that you want to tell. For me, the story happened quite early. Here I am, a kid growing up in Sierra Leone, West Africa. And my dad had just taught me the poem of this character, this historic figure from Armenian history called Bartan Mamegonian. And I was reciting the poem, Bartan poem. And this basically instilled in me a desire to tell this story one day in my life because I identified with this character, a character that didn't give up despite all odds. So that's what we call a passion project. It's not something that somebody's actually paying you for, but it does begin your creative journey, and it's something that starts burning inside you over the years. Now, if you want to tell your story, you have to figure out how to get there. But before the how part, how do I get there? I think you should ask yourself why. Why do I want to do this? Why do I want to put myself through this? Why do I want to tell this story? There is no wrong answer. I mean, everybody has a reason of why we do what we do. Some of us want to do it because we want to make lots of money. Other people want a cool job. Others of us want to have significance in the group. We want to be known. We want to be famous. And some of us want to just tell a story that's meaningful, reach out to connect with people, and something that binds us all together. So there is no wrong answer. You just have to answer for yourself. Actually, there is one wrong answer. I've got to rephrase that. The one wrong answer is if you lie to yourself as to why you're doing something. You have to be very honest. And the reason I say this is it'll become very apparent later on in my talk. The reason I say this is because you're going to be paying a price, probably a very big price, for embarking on a journey where you're trying to do something that's very difficult. And if you're not honest with yourself about why you're doing it, then it's going to make your life a lot more difficult than it needs to be. So first you have to define your project. You have to tell the story in 1 or 2 sentences. That's called a log line. So let me put it this way. If you're in an elevator and you're going down and you're in there with a top film executive or producer and you have to pitch your story in 1 or 2 sentences, that's what you would tell them. Those are the sentences you would use. That's a log line. That really helps you define the essence of the story that you're trying to tell very early on. So everything you do from that point on actually serves that, rather than you trying to find the meaning in what you're doing. This is a very important exercise. And I know people tell people to do that, and other people, well, no, I'll just figure it out as I go. Well, you're just going to have to learn it the hard way. That's just the way it is. But you can also do something else. It's a fun exercise. You can come up with a catchy phrase for the poster. That's called the tagline. As a fun exercise for your project, think about the poster for your project. What would the poster look like? What would the cover of the comic book look like that you're going to do? What would the cover of a novel look like? And what would the tagline be? If you were to do a poster for it, it's just something catchy that you put on the poster that doesn't really tell you the story, but it kind of lures you in, teases you in, so you're intrigued. So you'd be like, well, whoa, that sounds interesting. I'd go to see that movie. I would read that comic book. Okay? So that's kind of the idea here. So my journey for my project, the next phase begins in New Zealand, because it's one of the reasons I wanted to talk about what my background was and the fact that I was in New Zealand on Lord of the Rings. And a little light bulb went on in my head. I met a cool group of gentlemen, reenactors called the Order of the Boar. They do reenactment writing, and I approached them and I said, well, I'd like to do something dealing with late Roman history, which involves the Armenian and Persian struggles, and where the story of Vartan Mamegonian takes place. And, I'd like to visualize it because, frankly, I'd like to see what they really were wearing and what, we could do to make it visually stunning. So, they came on board, and I found a costume designer named Debs Russell who came aboard as well, and Vance Hartwell. And they basically came on board and helped me craft the costumes. And then we put them on horses, and we actually filmed a teaser. This is in 2002. So you can see how long my project has taken. Okay, and I don't mind talking about it. People have told me not to mention it's taken this long, but I think if I'm going to give you a lecture on following your passion project and seeing it through, I'd be doing you a disservice if I didn't talk about the actual truth of it, let's say. I filmed a teaser that I showed at the 2002 ARPA Film Festival. So I flew all the way back from New Zealand, and they were nice enough to actually give me an award, not for this, but for my first project, which was the embedded documentary, because what I'd done is created this whole animated sequence that talked about the history of Armenia from the very beginning to the end, to the point at which my documentary began. And so here's a little bit of a clip from the New Zealand shoot that we did. Back then, this is before digital really took off. I mean, people were still filming on film. And I know for some of you, it's hard to imagine a world without digital cameras that are readily accessible. I mean, I could probably pull my phone out and get better image quality than this right now. But that's what we had to work with at that time for that budget. So we used a mini DV actually. And I went back a year later and I worked with some Persians that were living in New Zealand, and they became the Persian army as well. And just testing out the overall concept and methodology I was going to be using. For me, the idea of using techniques that were used, let's say the legacy era of filmmaking was fascinating because, yeah, sure, you could just do digital with everything, but I was also, someone who grew up watching a lot of the classics like Ben-Hur and Spartacus, and I was very much aware of how they would combine these little tricks to make battle, armies look bigger on the battlefield, and putting in matte paintings and so on, hanging miniatures. These are things that have fascinated me from the very beginning, even before getting into film. Okay, so we get in, then we form a company in the United States in around 2007, where we're going to get into the research and development. This is once I'm back in the States, the research, development, and storyboard animatic for the project. Now, what this is basically something, and I'm not playing the sound, but there is sound to this, and it's kind of working out parts of the story and so forth, and working out some of the shots and the characters that make up this storyline. And these are basically storyboards that were animated out so that they could follow through. And that gives us an idea. Now, when you watch the final product, you'll see that a lot of this actually did end up coming into whatever we ended up shooting years later. Now, the whole idea of the early pagan Armenian world that then confronted the new Christian faith that was taking hold, and how Armenia became basically the first kingdom to accept Christianity as its state religion in the early 4th century. So this was a very important moment in world history. And of course, my personal feeling with that is, regardless of how you see that event, it is a very important part of the cultural history of the Armenian people, and then subsequently what happens to us. Okay. So moving on. In 2008, we actually, using those storyboards, film, another teaser, because we're going to do a fundraising event. And yes, we did actually put a lot of money into costumes. Here we are. This is a part of a promotional video that we shot about the making of the footage. And looking at some of the tricks we were using, staging, working with people that actually are able to get the guys on camera to do the things that we want them to do. They did get together, they did train so that they could get in formation, they can do other things. We brought people on board, like Kitty over here, who's really good at shooting. She's skilled with a bow and arrow, and the participation, the enthusiasm was fantastic. Helen works in the industry. Like, there was a lot of people that actually do stuff, and it was quite a nice little adventure. Again, I mean, now we're using the red camera. This is digital at this point, and if you know anything about the red camera, I mean, it was revolutionary. And we decided to just go for it. My really close friend, Eli Jarrah, that I'd worked with for, and I've known for since the Space Jam days, came on board with his gear. And of course, Martin Yernazian, who's our cinematographer for this particular shoot. Here I am with the team. There's Eli on the right. Now, all these guys have gone on to do some cool things. Okay. And yeah, I'm going to show you the little teaser that we made. All right. Again, I'm not playing the sound because I want to actually talk through it a little bit. But you can see now where we put it together with some of the visual effects in the background. And again, this is being done for a very low budget. The whole idea of this was to raise funds. And you can see the ideas of crowd duplication and so forth. You know, we're trying to establish the idea of big battle scenes and so forth. At that time, 300 was really big. And again, this is in 2007, 2008. So, you know, we're dealing with a certain kind of a look that people were expecting to see. And so we'd film in front of a green screen and, you know, we'd do the whole storytelling aspect afterwards. This is Elena. She actually is a working actress as well. She's done some big stuff. She's appeared in Marvel movies and things. And this was a shot put together by Eli over some visual effects, create the idea of the siege. So you can tell we put quite a bit of money into this, time and effort as well. So let's get back to the magic envelope over here. Okay. Magic envelope, this is something that was given to me during their second fundraiser that we did. A young man by the name of Arthur Paryan, whose parents were working with me on this project, smashed his piggy bank, took all the money that was in his piggy bank, put it into this envelope and gave it to me as his contribution to the project, that I would have luck and I would see it to the end. And this was, you know, this was a very pivotal moment for me because I think it represented what a lot of people were doing, volunteering their time and you know, sacrificing because they also believed in the project. And I want to express that in something in a Japanese culture that's known as on. It's pronounced on, not on, on. An on is an obligation that comes about from gratitude. If somebody has done something for you and you have a sense of gratitude and you want to basically fulfill your obligation to them. So basically, I had an on placed on me by accepting that magic envelope because now I was bound, honor bound, to see this project through. And there would be a price to pay, obviously. Because again, this is not something that's being funded by tons of studio money. This isn't a remake of a remake. This is a passion project, which means that you're taking a definite risk by doing it. This is going to be the rest of your life. And as we're developing this project and trying to get it sold in 2012, I created a graphic novel called War Gods, using a lot of the visual reference that already existed from what we had shot. And ironically, it actually ended up being published in Spanish before it was published in English. It was published through a grant from the AGBU, which I'm very thankful for. But that was the first novel. Basically, it covered the first part of the story. There were two main parts to the story that I wanted to tell. One takes place in 301 AD, around there. The other one takes place about 451 AD. So the two graphic novels basically cover those two pivotal parts of our history. So we get the graphic novel out as a way of also marketing the project, because now that raises awareness and people can see visually what we're going after. And so this is our little tour that we're taking from, you know, all across the continent here, from Toronto, the Pomegranate Film Festival, to a nice event put on by Elizabeth over at the Glendale Central Library. So from Toronto to Glendale, we're having these events and I'm giving talks, and there's Eli again looking at his red cam, letting people know what the project was about. So I was taking it on the road to get it more, I guess, put it in front of people, make it more visible. In 2014, we went, there were some major setbacks, I should say, and I'm not going to get into details, but, you know, life happens, and there was some really crazy major setbacks. But in 2014, made our way to Armenia to shoot footage. There were 2 Armenia trips. This is the second one. And the crazy barbarian to my left is my brother, who actually also helped produce the project, and he also produced the events in Armenia. He was definitely very pivotal. Here I am with my Armenia team, really capable, dedicated people. I was very happy to work with them, and they're all again doing amazing things right now. This was 2014, so this was a way for us to shoot a lot of things on location as well. There was a lot of transportation, taking equipment back and forth and so on. This is actually where we get to work with horses again. I remember in 2002, I worked in New Zealand, but this was a way for us to actually work with the horses that were being bred in Armenia. Actually, this breed was being mixed. They were reintroducing the Arabian back to Armenia, and they were breeding them, and you got these really nice looking horses. And here we are shooting, you can see Mount Ararat in the background over there. Here we are shooting some of the sequences here. I was using a technique that was used in Spartacus. Basically, you film people in one section, then you film the same people in another section, and so forth, and you put it all together, and they look like a big army. Okay, this is supposed to be the battle at the Agori, the village that Vahan Mamegonian, for those of you that know history, actually was succeeded in. It was fought around Mount Ararat, probably a lot closer to Mount Ararat than we were. But as you know, Mount Ararat is now in the hands of Turkey, so it would have been very tough for us to go shoot a bunch of Armenian warriors in Turkey. But the best we can. We also did something which I have an affinity for actual live theater, and I believe that one of the methods the reason I chose this method of shooting our soundstage material, in addition to using green screen, which I'll demonstrate later, was the fact that I could get this more theatrical look based on the budget we had, based on the people we had, and so forth. And the whole idea of this project is you're in the mind of the person who's telling you the story. So it has a much more artistic quality. We also went and shot on location in Malibu at about 110, 115 degree heat. It was a very difficult shoot, but again, everybody came and they were dedicated. Tempers flared because of the heat. I mean, we were just dealing with a lot at that point, but we knew we had to get some outdoor footage and get a few more horse shots in the door. And there's Eli again, you know, shouldering his red cam. We always try to shoot with 2 or 3 cameras just so we could get coverage. And a lot of our actors ended up playing a lot of different roles, kind of like an ensemble theater, as usual. In 2015, I did the second graphic novel for Warrior Saints. I used existing visual material. I made new visual material, so I had to get people back, put them in costume, and take photographs. I also had to do a Kickstarter to raise money. So what I did to raise money was I painted over 100 unique covers, digitally painted, 100 unique covers that I would give supporters. That was one of the categories. So I have all that. Maybe one day I'll do a special art exhibit just of the covers. There's quite a few of them. And so now we had the second successful Kickstarter, and this one we got the book in hardcover. Here I am with the guy who played Vartan Mamegonian in my footage, Duro Arzuyan, who's an artist himself. Bear of a man. He's the only one that can actually wear that armor because it's so heavy. I mean, I think we kind of overproduced it, so to speak. But I gave him his copy of the book. So, I mean, we were dealing with a lot of issues on how we're going to finish this project. Okay. And that's something that a lot of low budget projects encounter because, you know, at some point you realize, and this is very common with people in passion projects, that you will bite off more than you can chew. And it's not abnormal. It's not unheard of for projects to take a long time. I mean, even if you're I mean, Ridley Scott took, 10 years to get Gladiator made. I mean, this is Ridley Scott, okay, by the time they approved and he got it made. And Hollywood is full of these stories of these really accomplished directors and producers taking forever. So that part of it, that's nothing new. But the fact that it 2002 was when I started. I said, you know, I still have this Om sitting on top of me, this honor-bound obligation. I've got to figure this out. And so one of my friends here, you might recognize this gentleman, Serge Tankian. I've done a few music videos for him, and he came aboard early on to do the soundtrack to whatever project came out of the, at the time it was the East of Byzantium project, which then became Warrior Saints. And while I was doing a music video for Serge, for his How Many Times music video, working with Eli Jarrah again, I realized that there was going to be another light bulb went on, because I'm like, okay, you know what? There's another way to approach this. There's another way to finish this project. And this is the whole adaptability aspect of it. So let me show you a little bit of what we did that kind of opened the door to finish the project finally. So here we're filming in front of green screen. We have a certain group of characters that we did both as live action. Here's storyboards. Very important. I always love storyboarding everything. And we did the same actors in miniature. So we created the same world in front of green screen as miniatures. And here's Eli with the different red cams that we're using. Okay, demonstrating them. These are actors in front of the green screen. And here's some of the costumes I pretty much had to make myself. We were also, to make it easy to work with, you know, the smaller children characters, we actually used mannequins because it would have been tough to pick people up. And here we also created computer versions, CG versions of our characters. So we combined all that together. And that was done in Armenia by Armenian American, who's a director himself. Here's my daughters who are participating in the project. And that's little Sophia there, who was playing. Okay, so these characters are like the Adam and Eve character being cast out of the Garden of Eden, the Tower of Babel, basically the whole Genesis story that I thought really was fitting for Serge's song. And you can watch this music video online. It's gotten over 1 million views now. But you know, it was also inspired by what happened after the 2020 war in Artsakh, or Nagorno-Karabakh at that time. That really shaped what I wanted to do as part of the storytelling. And here I am using a lot of legacy techniques to tell the story and weaving them in with computer-generated graphics, with a computer-generated digital doubles, and with actual maquettes and miniatures that we're creating. We're trying to combine this look together to get this very unique sort of world, create this world that people would always guess at, you know, is that a computer generated thing? Is that a miniature? So on and so forth. That's supposed to be the later version of the serpent from the Garden of Eden. So it becomes a more mechanized. This whole world, which combines, it's also obviously a commentary I'm making on the use of drone warfare, that whole music video, because Armenia, that war between Armenia and Azerbaijan over that enclave was one of the first times you really saw the use of drones and the difference they made on the battlefield and the carnage they caused, where one side was completely overwhelmed by another. Okay, and here's again the kind of legacy sort of feel. Big fan of the original series of Star Trek. I wanted something that looked a little bit more vintage in terms of the effects that we were doing. And of course, we believed in giving our miniature actors a break as well, because, you know, union rules. You've got to, you know, coffee breaks every so often and so forth. I think they were pretty happy. Yeah, I got a laugh. Thank you, whoever you are. Love you too. So basically, storyboards and key art, miniatures, black box, studio photography, green screen photography, live on location photography, and digital effects. The idea was to combine all of these and create this kind of amalgamation, this really unique look. And that's how Warrior Saints, the webisode series, was born. It was reborn, I should say, because then I realized how I could finish this. But before I could go on, and this is kind of, again, I'm telling you this and I'm kind of exposing myself because I really want to share this with you. I really want a lot of you who are trying to tell your passion project, give you kind of a leg up so you don't kind of go around and do this roundabout journey. But I realized I had to go back to the drawing board and I had to redo the research. And something that really interested me was, again, the question of why. I wanted to know why people make the decisions they did, how they lived, what they thought, what pressures they were under. Like, why did a country or a kingdom decide that we're going to adopt, let's say, Christianity as our state religion? Armenia did it. Then a little bit later, the Roman Empire under Constantine adopted it. So instead of people sitting there and saying, well, it was a conspiracy, they wanted to do this, they want to do that, I've heard all kinds of stories, believe me. I tend to take a more humanitarian approach to my fellow human beings, and I like to give them the benefit of the doubt. And I wanted to learn about what life was like in Rome and in the Roman Empire and its adjoining environments. And I wanted to know what people were really thinking and what they were going through, both emotionally, spiritually, and physically. I want to know why they made those choices. And I wanted that to actually inform anything I was going to write in terms of what these webisodes were going to be. And all these things, all these decisions, all these people made, people like us, maybe 2,000 years ago, 1,500 years ago, 500 years ago, led to the world that we live in now. So I believe this is important, something important to talk about. Another approach I took was editing using the radio play method. I'm a big fan of radio plays. And I wanted first to edit everything in terms of sound. Tell the story with narration, with music, with sound effects before I even put one image to it. This was some advice I got from a husband and wife team who took a look at the project, and they said, making a narrative documentary series like this, you're probably better off doing it this way, because then you really work out the story and the images are a plus. Because if any of you have listened to dramatized readings of novels and podcasts, where an audio book that was, you see the camera in your head. The camera in your head is the best movie camera ever. It's the best director. It's the best producer. The images you see in your head when you listen to a good, well done, dramatized radio play or dramatized novel, fiction, storytelling, even recreation history, even just somebody that's really good, like Dan Carlin, when he talks about, different aspects of history and his podcast, you see the movie in your head. I said, I want to see the movie in my head before I even go back and try to put any images to this. So I had to reteach myself how to use Premiere and make myself the editor, because that was always the issue we're having. We were having editors quit left and right because they just couldn't meet the demand of that movie that was in my head. And I realized that it was unfair to them. I was the one who would encapsulate all this. It was up to me to make it make sense for myself and then make it make sense for other people. So we created Warrior Saints webisodes, and I brought in these two gentlemen that are friends of mine, and we've been in discussions for a long time. Peter Baloyan comes aboard as producer, Eli Jera, cinematographer, VFX supervisor. Both are organizational minded, but very different. I mean, their characters are very different. It's like, being on the deck of the Enterprise and, there's Kirk. I mean, I'm not saying I'm Kirk, but I'm just saying, like, it's like Kirk, there's Bones McCoy, there's Nimoy, Spock. Basically, what I'm going after with that analogy, for those of you that get it, is you need to put different personalities together that are going to complement each other. And all these people have to agree, this is our goal and this is what we're going to do. So Peter's a big picture guy and Eli's more picture specific. You put these two together with me kind of in the middle to be this, whatever, I don't know what at this point. I also pull a favor with Chris Kumarian, whose voice had a really amazing quality, who was working with me developing the narration. And we went to the podcast studio of Vic over here. They were doing the Mayor Harrosnera podcast. Vic Aslanian, he's a really talented guy as well. So we were just recording all the audio. Vic was actually letting me use, and you'll see it now, the room right next to this, he had let me use, turn into the miniature stage, because we actually created a miniature sound stage. And so I would be creating the miniature sound stage, and then we would come in here and we would record the audio and work that out, because we were still, even though we had the edit, we were always working out a better narration. Okay. So that's our narration recording. Now I went back and I created a bunch of keyframe art, which are these watercolors. Because again, I wanted, look, part of this is also getting me reinterested back in the project. And the way I approach things, I'm being an artist. I needed to see these things in color in front of me. And I wanted to put stuff on the wall in the studio when we're filming so everybody that's working on this can see what the vision is. So this is something like key art, basically, is what it's called. It's storyboards that are colored. They represent key moments in the story. And by the way, these watercolors, these originals, are going to be part of a solo show that I'll be having in June, which you're all invited to in Glendale, of course, where else? At Stepan Partamyan's gallery, the Armenian Arts Center, right there in Orange. And they will be also on the website available for purchase. This is another way we're raising money to do more episodes. Okay, so I'm making these available. This is original art. This is not AI. Okay. So now I'm going to show you the whole way that the whole process of taking a key art, creating it using styrofoam, putting plaster of Paris and other materials, and just working these environments that I'm creating in miniature. Because again, it's a nostalgic feel. I wanted people to feel like there was this real effect, this real world that you could touch, and and there was a lot of discovery involved. This is a test shot with a Mithraic grotto. There's the final. And then we repurposed that for when Mesrop Mashtots was formulating the Armenian alphabet. So again, it was used as the interior of a grotto again, even for our titles and even for miniatures, miniature people that we were going to use. Here's a test shot that I'm shooting just with a phone. Here's Vana, who's one of our key manufacturers and fabricators, who's now also doing stop motion. So is Eli working with the camera. And you can see that the world comes alive. And once you put a lot of like this, atmosphere, as Kayla, Eli's daughter, helping us out, Eli showing us the special lens we're using for shooting miniatures. Here's the final shot of the battlefield. Now then I want to show you the context in the edit. See, so we have a battle and then we switch over to a miniature shot. Because this is a very stylized kind of filmmaking. I didn't want to be doing something that necessarily had a look like any other thing that you'd ever seen. And that's part of the thing of working with a limited budget. You have to come up with something that's creative. And of course, that's me creating these temple shots that are going to be put behind the green screen actors, and then composited in with fire elements and so on. We had to create a temple that was going to be destroyed for the destruction, and it had to be built to fall apart. Normally you build things to, last, but this one had to be built to fall apart. I also did the pyrotechnics. We're using black powder. Here we are almost burning down Peter's backyard. Eli and I showed up with some black powder effects, and we had to, again, destroy this temple and make it fall. Yeah, there's a bunch of guys together blowing stuff up. I mean, what else? What do you want? And this is how we're using it in the actual shot. So here's the rise of the Mamagonians, the process, again, during a miniature shoot. And I got this very talented couple to come in, friends of mine, Sona and Misho. Sona has a podcast, and Misho's actually a rapper. And he's got a concert coming up. But anyway, showing you how we combine these elements and created a vignette around them, create this look like almost like you're looking at a manuscript page that came alive. Here's Vana putting together location that's now been lost to Armenians. I don't know if it's forever, but definitely for the time being. And this was a very important place. Amaras. This is where Mesrob actually created the monastery, the school created to teach kids the new Armenian reformulated alphabet. Even though we had the language, this was the reformulation so that the Bible could be translated into Armenian and also kind of set Armenians into a distinct category. And again, here's us putting the shot together. This is a funeral of the emperor. Constantine's dad dies when they're in a campaign in Britain. And so we created this using miniatures. Those are the 8-inch miniatures that very talented Grace Malagon created costumes for. And then There's the death of Alexander. Body that we use, we've repurposed. So this is the actual funeral of the emperor, Roman emperor at the time. The reason I'm showing you all this is that we're really thinking out of the box at this point. We're saying, you know what? We want to create something and we want people to guess as to how we did it. Until I told you, you may not have been able to tell that these were, you might have thought this was CG, you might have thought this was AI, you might have thought a whole bunch of different things, but you know. And another reason why I did it like this is because I wanted to get my hands dirty. I wanted there to be my own blood in this thing. Because again, this is a blood oath that I took, not an actual blood oath. I mean, I don't want to get too dramatic, but this is something that really meant a lot to me. I had to finish this. And these guys came aboard to help me. And by God, I was going to do it. So, you know, this was, let's just say the physical strain, it was immense, but it was so rewarding. The minute you see these shots through the camera lens is just like magic. And then here we are also refilming. This is the newer stuff that we're filming against what we've learned now about the black stage, using the black sound stage to create a very moody look. And the project actually deals with more than just Armenians and Christians. It also deals with the whole aspect of warrior saints of different cultures and different religions up to the Crusades, but not getting into the Crusades. We don't want to deal with that. But this is again something where you have a miniature background to something we shot in 2008. This was shot in 2008 in front of a green screen. And what I did was I took Henry, who's playing this character that we really didn't have defined in 2008, and I said, I'm going to recast you as Constantine the Great, the Emperor Constantine, because he's got a good Constantine look. Now here's a green screen shot. Okay, this is before the battle. I'm getting ready to go to battle. I wanted there to be some, you know, tender moments. You know, these again are human beings. I look at my characters as human beings that have real emotions. They're not just little statues in a, you know, in some story. And this is the final shot right here. You can see how it looks with the you know, digital background. And I took two people that appeared, Helen and Alina, that appeared in other shots, cut them up and put them in the back. So it created, you know, you want to keep putting people in these shots so it doesn't just look like the whole show's like 3 people. That's how you give away the fact that you have a low budget, is when you don't have a lot of people in it, especially in the background. So the final touches were smooth out the editing, sound, music cues, the sound design. Again, this is where producers come in. People like Peter jump in there, and Eli's also producing with me at this point. Everyone's jumping in, making deals with people, pulling favors, you know. We're doing the final visual effects. It all falls on us because, again, it's a budget issue. Do you want to finish it? Is there anyone else to do it? No? Okay, guess what? You're going to do it. Do the final color. Here, I'm going to play you something else from one of the episodes from Warrior Saints. There's 7 in total right now of our webisodes that are going to be revealed really soon on YouTube for free. And I'm going to, it's based on that link that I just showed you. And they're going to start being revealed on, that was an announcement we wanted to make during this talk. They'll be revealed starting Mother's Day. You're going to get 2 episodes, and then you're going to get one every day after that for free on YouTube.
Break the world apart. The king, Durtat, has just discovered what to his mind is a Christian spy. The man, Gregory, was only just yesterday his closest confidant and healer. Today, he kneels before the king as an unrepentant Christian, refusing to bow to the king's own pagan gods. Gregory never hid his beliefs from the king. He did hide something else, however. Gregory hid his true identity. That his father was a spy working for the Persians. A spy that murdered Durtat's father, the king of Armenia. Kill the king and we'll make you the new king, they said. But unfortunately for the assassin, it was not to be. The assassin and his family were killed while trying to escape. Only one boy survived, Gregory. That's right, this Gregory. Durtat was already in a tough spot, and this was the last thing he needed. To have his best friend and confidant exposed as the son of the man who destroyed his family.
All right. So that gives you a little bit of a taste right there. Here's another one. This is episode 6.
It has been over 400 years since the birth of Christianity, and one of its defenders is about to make his last stand. In a battle against all odds, General Vartan Mamigonian is about to enter the realm of legend. Rome is still split between an eastern and western half. Both parts are now ruled by Christian emperors. The Armenian king has been deposed by the Persians, and the lands are now controlled by feudal lords who are increasing their powers. To the north, both Persia and Rome have to contend with a new deadly invasion, led by Attila the Hun. As usual, Armenians are left to face their enemies alone in this latest chapter of God's warrior saints.
All right, there you go. So that gives you a taste of the flavor, and what happens next you're gonna have to watch. So, and you're gonna be able to watch for free. Now, if you're inclined, you can support our efforts, and I'll tell you how. But I want to support you by giving you as much information on creating your own passion projects as possible. So let's talk about the key principles here. Define your project first. This is so important, and I think you're getting an idea of that. Come on. I started something in 2002 and just finished it in 2023. What does that tell you? Well, I got gumption and tenacity, and I had the right friends come along. God bless them. But, you know, it's a long journey, and you don't need to make it any tougher than it needs to be. So you create a log line and a tagline. You figure out what the story's about, why you're telling this story, and what a cool poster would look like with, you know, something catchy on it, something that you'd want to watch, or a cool cover of a graphic novel or something. For example, a riveting and unique web series about key figures of history cross the line between warrior and saint and change the course of empires. Yeah, you hear warrior and saint in the same sentence. That's problematic. I want people to get a little bothered by that, and I want you to watch it, and I want you to work it out yourself. I want you to have your own opinion about something. I'm just going to present it. I'm going to disrupt. I don't have to pass judgment. But I'm going to try and make you understand these people. So you create alliances. You find the people that are going to come on board and work with you. They're going to make sacrifices, and you're going to honor them, and you're going to treat them with the same respect that they're treating you. Now, some people don't know how to do that, and that's really unfortunate. I've worked with people. I have given them my time and effort, and they've acted like it was something I was obligated to do. That is not the attitude you want to take. And these gentlemen have honored me, and I will honor them. And guess what? I will work with them on whatever they want me to work with them on. And I'm hoping this journey is going to take us to even bigger and better versions of what we started. So develop and use techniques within your means. It was within our means to shoot this project the way we did because of the experiments we did with this latest music video we did with Serge Tonkin, the How Many Times music video. If you watch that, you'll see the same thing, how we're jumping back and forth. And you'll see how we used the same techniques to create the imagery for warrior saints. Also, you got to control the weak links. You try and stand on your own timeline as long as you can. Now, there are going to be people get involved, and, you know, look, I'm not pointing fingers. I think people do mean well most of the time. You do sometimes get people that don't, but for the most part, people do mean well, but they have their own timetable. They have their own ideas how to push something forward. If you're not ready to push your project forward and do it the right way, then you're not ready. Don't get suckered into something where suddenly now you're working for someone else on something that you gave birth to. When it's time, it's time. But if it's not time, you're just going to get crushed. If you're not ready, you're not ready. That's fine. Do it in your own timetable. Do it when you're ready to go. The base approach on your final delivery method is it's going to be on Instagram. Is it's going to be a reel on YouTube. Always rely on your own capabilities. Roger Corman, big producer, always said, if you're not a stuntman, don't put stunts in your movies. What he's trying to say is if you don't have a huge budget to do big stunts and so on and so forth, and you're trying to make a movie with stunts in it, you better be a stuntman. If you want visual effects in something and you're a visual effects person, then you can do it. But if you're going to create like massive, shots with hundreds of thousands of extras, well, you need a budget for that. And if you don't have it, then figure out another kind of project and another kind of approach. Never oversell your project to more than it is. It's okay to be positive in your meetings, but if you oversell it, you're letting people up with expectations you can't meet necessarily. And lastly, you got to do something you would love to see. Also, I want to throw something else in there. Be cool to everyone along your journey, because you never know. Now, in 2010, I was helping Art Center students do a movie based on a script that I had written. And then one of these young gentlemen that showed up on set, who's very smart, very capable, I could tell, always asking the right questions. He came as a assistant producer, and he was helping us put this together. It was a very difficult time, very difficult shoot. So this individual ends up one day becoming this guy, producer of Sinners. Now, Sinners is a huge movie right now. Seb Ohanian, okay? And the reason I'm putting this there, I want to give him a shout out because I'm very proud of him. I think him and his wife, Natalie, are doing some great work. We do have a lot of amazing Armenians out there that are, executives in Netflix. They're producers, they're directors, and things like that, that are, I think they're the next generation. And I think this topic is, also about putting Armenian history into all these different mediums and telling our story. And I believe they're going to have the power to do it. But, here's a guy that had tenacity. He did the work himself. Believe me, I didn't have anything to do with it. I mean, I did answer any of his questions he had, but he went on and he had his own stellar career. And you never know. You never know. It's never, this is not the industry that you want to be pissing people off if you can avoid it. It is a very small world. You never know who's going to get where. There's a saying by one of these old Hollywood people, I forget who necessarily. He said, the hand you shake on the way up is the ass you don't have to kiss on the way down. Seb also did the new Space Jam, right? I'll let you decide which one was better, but it's kind of like a Highlander moment, right? There can only be one. No, I'm kidding. Yeah, good for him though. So I'm going to finish up the story with this story of the magic envelope. What happened to it? Well, Peter and I and Eli put on an event in Burbank, and we were going to show all the episodes, the webisodes together, which, by the way, are not meant to be seen all in one go. They're the energy level of the editing and so on. They're meant to be seen like one at a time, right? And also get broken up into little Instagram reels and YouTube reels, because that's the way people are watching these things now. And I told Arthur's dad, Arthur's the kid who gave me the envelope. And by the way, Arthur has appeared in my footage too. He was part of the production. But I told Arthur's dad, please don't tell him. Please make sure he shows up to the event. I have something special. So this envelope, people, I never opened it. It was always with me. I always kept it in my drawer. It moved around different offices, different places, but I never opened it. I never saw how much money was in there. This was something, it was like, I don't know, the briefcase from Pulp Fiction, when they open it up and there's gold in there. That's what this thing was for me. This was somebody giving me a duty, who gave me a challenge to get this thing done. And for this cycle of the project, this cycle of the filmmaking experience, I had finally gotten it done. So Arthur was there, and I invited him up, and I basically gave him the envelope, and I thanked him because now my honor-bound oath was complete. So Arthur accepted his envelope back, and I hope that it will be something for him to go on and fulfill his dreams as it has mine. Okay. So we started filming the footage that you saw from 2008, actually, and we ended 2024. That's when our last year was when our presentation was to a packed audience. It was as a packed audience, standing room only, and it was amazing. What an vindication for everything that the team and I had to go through to get this thing done. So here I'm going to give you the QR code again. Go ahead and grab that, and you'll be able to get the links to the YouTube channel where we're going to start unveiling, starting Mother's Day. Each episode, you'll get 2 episodes on Mother's Day, episode 1 and 2, and then you'll get 1 every day following. And they're free to watch, and you can support the project by going to, and the link is there, going to the website that Peter and I have set up. And you can get the graphic novels, you can get the original watercolors. You know, everything is priced because we know what people are going through right now, but we also know it's a way for you to support us and for us to give you something in return so we can make more of these. So, no, we're not going to end with another episode. That's it. And I'm going to stop sharing. Thank you.
Thank you, Roger. We have a question. I'm going to read the question. As someone who teaches undergraduates about systems thinking and cultural narratives in science, I'm interested in how you choose which historical events to visualize. How might educators use your storytelling approach to help students engage more deeply with cultural identity and historical complexity in the classroom?
Okay.
This is from Paul.
Thank you. That's a good, challenging question there. And it weaves right into what we're talking about with when you deal with historic subjects. There's so much to history. There's so much editing we do just even to teach history because there's so many nuances and stories woven throughout. And again, it is the same approach of deciding what aspect you're going to go after as your log line. 2-3 sentences that is going to tell, that's going to inform the whole curriculum, basically. I mean, that's the approach I take. I was a teacher at one time. I did spend a 1.5 years teaching at Farahian. And before that, I was an assistant teacher at with kids over here at Glendale High School. So again, a lot of respect to teachers. I think it's phenomenal that you do not get paid enough. But the idea is that what we want people to learn now, especially now in our history, is not just facts, obviously, but we want them to really feel what people were going through so they identify with the event of this, whatever this historic topic is. And, you know, people need to connect to these characters. Now, again, what we're getting about these characters, just a quick side note, what we're getting about these characters may not be entirely accurate. These were written by historians that might have been paid by someone to write this history. And the further back in history you go, the tougher it gets. Now, obviously, when you're dealing with things like, you know, New Testament scholarship, there's thousands and thousands and thousands of scholars that are always scrutinizing everything with different opinions, but you get a lot of scholarship about something. But yet, the further back you go, including those 2 topics I'm talking about with the Vartan's War for Armenian independence and the conversion of Durtad the Great's kingdom to Christianity, the sources are very limited. Now, what we do is we look at everything and we deduce from there, and we do these kind of, we ask ourselves questions of what they might have really been thinking and what they went through. So what I'm trying to say is it's almost like the filmmaking and storytelling approach. You have to say, okay, what's going to make sense in a storytelling? Because when someone's sitting there listening to something that's historical, they are listening to a story after all. And how do you make it make sense to them so that they connect with it? But I don't think I answered the question 100%. The technology that people are using now, they're using, I mean, a lot of people are using AI, and it frankly gets me really annoyed when people do that, because when I'm on Instagram and I see this AI history thing, it's AI images and that same AI narrator saying, I know that narrator voice and I know what musical track they're using. Maybe they're using the thing from Interstellar. I don't know. I immediately turn it off because, you know, I want a person to tell me the story. I want to connect to the person. History is about human beings We are human beings. We tell stories to other human beings, and as human beings, we're teaching other humans. Let's keep in that arena at least, even if we use AI as a tool. Anyway, sorry, I don't know if I answered that question, but it was actually a very loaded question, a very good one. That would take a whole series to expand.
Roger, we have some more questions. And
Mm.
again, I want to remind people, please do write your questions in the chat. So the next question is, how do you deal with artistic block when trying to create? This is from Ellie.
Eli.
Eli.
Yeah.
All right.
I think you have to get radical with yourself. Find a bear with me. You got to do something that just pulls you out of your own skin. And one of the ways I did that was, again, just switching to another medium, saying I'm actually going to stop working on something. I'm going to go outside. I'm going to go and encounter something. And that's going to actually break it. Because if I'm sitting in front of a place and I'm trying to do the same thing and it's not working, that's madness. You've just got to change the environment. I don't care if you go find a swimming pool that's not heated and jump in and freeze your ass off, because that's going to jar you and shock you. I mean, you got to do whatever it is you have to do, to shake yourself out of your own skin. That's the first step. It's almost like a reboot. You've got to reboot the system. If you're getting an artistic block in one medium too, like if you're someone that can do a bunch of different things, for example, if you paint and you can also write, then why don't you stop writing and start painting? Because something's happening here. This programming you're dealing with, the ego, the id, the evolutionary, whatever it is back there, there's some kind of programming glitch that's going on, and you need to break out of that. You need a reboot. So I think that's one of the ways you can do it. People also drop acid, but I'm not recommending that right now.
Next question comes from Ara. When telling the story of historical event, is creative license acceptable while knowing the true history, which is not commercially appealing and reduces the chance of gathering funds for the project?
I think that anytime you create something that's historic in another medium, and people are going to come at Warrior Saints for that too. We're simplifying things because in Warrior Saints' case, the webisodes, they're 10 minutes long because, again, I realize people's attention span. You're taking one thing that is very scholarly and might be debated, and you're putting it into another medium. Even if you're just doing a painting, even if you're just doing, a sketch, you're still editing. So you are, for want of a better word, you're telling a lie to tell the truth. Even people who do documentaries have to edit. And when they start editing, they're not putting everything in. They have to tell a story in a certain amount of time to get a certain reaction from the audience. The creative license you can take is something that I believe doesn't take away from the essence of the story. And it doesn't take the characters and completely change around the essence of that character. So all of a sudden, you take a historic character and completely recast them in a way that doesn't represent their cultural background. It doesn't really represent what was going on around them. It's fulfilling some modern ideal or some modern idea that we're trying to have a discussion about. I believe those kinds of things are better suited for doing some kind of a fantasy story, and totally you can do that, than it is to say I'm making a historic topic or it's based on real events. And if you look at a lot of the Hollywood movies out there, Braveheart is not about William Wallace. It's inspired by William Wallace. It takes place in Scotland, and it deals with the Brits. I mean, there's some similarities, but you're basically doing a fictional story that's based on a real character. Are you telling the full story of William Wallace? Did they actually wear those costumes when they fought the Brits and so on? You can debate some of those things, right? But it gives you the essence of the character, and you realize that there was a real William Wallace. Now, if you want to go read about him, you can learn more. And they have made subsequent films like the Robert the Bruce movie, where they try to be a bit more realistic about Scottish culture and British culture at that time and so forth. But the movie, Braveheart, one of our favorite movies ever, another favorite movie, Gladiator, like they're all taking historic facts and kind of mushing them together because they've got 2 hours to tell you a story, to make money in the theater, to get people to buy popcorn, to come and see it again, so on and so forth. Or if you make a comic book out of it, they're going to edit it, they're going to do different angles and so on. And there's places where things are missing, there's gaps, and you've got to fill the gaps in to tell a story. So if you get into this like history lecture, then that's a history lecture. But it's not necessarily a fictional film, it's not necessarily a series. It's a decision you have to make, and you have to do your best to make sure that you're accurate. But you're not always going to be accurate based on the fact that you have constraints. And you might even have budgetary constraints. You might not be able to shoot in those places, and you might have to change your story around. You might even combine characters together, kind of like what they did with Chernobyl. If you watch Chernobyl, excellent, excellent show, miniseries, and supervisor, someone I worked with, the visual effects supervisor, Max Dennison. I worked with him in the matte painting department. He was supervising us, Lord of the Rings. Excellent work, beautiful. But again, they had to take certain characters. Okay, this is something that happened recently in our history, and they had to combine them in order to tell this story, because you couldn't tell that story otherwise. It would just get too bogged down. So that's my take on that.
Okay, Paul is asking, will this amazing presentation be archived and available for attendees to watch again in the future? The answer is yes. And we have one more question. Probably this is going to be the last question. Would you ever consider doing the Vartan Mamikonian saga with robots and sci-fi, or would it be considered sacrilegious? How could you make the saga more accessible to a general audience?
Well, I think you could just tell it as it is, and you could also take any historic figure, and they do this already. You can take any historic figure and basically place them into another environment, like a science fiction environment. And science fiction and history are very related, because it's almost like you're telling a history of the future if you look at science fiction shows. Case in point, Dune. All right, Star Wars, which is closely related to Dune. These are all like these epic sort of historic things that almost like you're way in the future, looking back on the future, and you're watching something. So yes, you could tell that story using whatever medium you wanted. And in fact, let me just do a little spin on you, because nobody asked me a question about AI yet, and I know you're thinking about it. I'm watching stuff right now that has AI versions of Armenian history, Kachvartan, and all that stuff. It's going to come to the point one day where you can just sit down, put your goggles on, and basically tell AI, whatever it is, Claude, Grok, whoever's your Genesis, you're going to be able to say, you know what, do the Battle of Avarayed, I want 60,000 soldiers here, I want 100,000 there, blah, blah, and there's these characters, and cast, this guy, Christian Bale is Barton, and I want Persian to be played by, Oscar Isaac. So you're going to be able to do that using AI one day. Like this whole point of even like, can we recast things? It's going to be very fluid, and in a way, it becomes something else. But the same storyline of somebody who doesn't give up, no matter what. That's part of the Armenian character, by the way, as experienced by the two Artsakh wars that we had, and then the final Exodus. That we just don't give up, because we have characters in our history that are, persevere. That can carry on into a robotic world or cyber world or whatever you want to do. Or you can even do like a showdown in downtown LA, you could be like, the Vatos versus you can do whatever you want. It's up to you as a storyteller to say, I can recast this, but I have the essence of the story and the point that it's trying to make. Are there any other questions?
So that was the last questions we had. We have
awesome.
time for some more questions. If you would
Sure.
like to ask, please do.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to ask a question from okay, this is the question. Your creative work often draws from historical and cultural narratives. How do you balance artistic expression with historical accuracy when telling stories through film and graphic novels?
Could you repeat the question? I was reading Eli's question, and I'm like, oh, those are good questions too. And sorry, go on one more time.
So your creative work often draws from historical and cultural narratives. How do you balance artistic expression with historical accuracy when telling stories through film and graphic novels?
Yeah, I think I kind of covered that in the earlier response
Yes.
to Paul. It's again, you have to make choices, and you have to be able to live with those choices, and also tell people at some point when they say, yeah, is this completely 100% accurate? You have to be able to say, yeah, we kind of abridged it because there's debate about this event, so we played it this way. I believe it was John Huston, a film director, who said that when you're, or is it, no, John Milius, sorry, another one of my favorites. He said when you're faced with the history and the legend in film, play to the legend. Because these are all legendary characters. So at the same point, you got to inspire people to sit down for 2 hours and watch something. So you can't just get up and do a history lecture. That's for a classroom. It's not going to work any other way. And they are dynamic history teachers who can carry it in a classroom. And I've seen those people. My favorite teachers have been history teachers, and they can tell a story, but they know they're telling a story and they tell it well. And so you sit there and go, yes, tell me more about these characters that you're talking about, because ultimately they are characters. I'm not sitting next to the person in the Civil War while he's shooting his musket at that other guy. I'm not there. I have to rely on people that were there telling me these stories. So if you are going to make me feel it, then make a movie like Glory so I can see it like 5 times in the theater and go, I'm trying to understand this. I'm going to go see First Man to see what, the first people to land on the moon went through with all those sounds or whatever. Is it 100% accurate? Is that exactly what Armstrong was like? Probably not. But it gives me the idea, it gives me the emphasis so that then maybe I want to go and I want to study more on these people and learn more. It does have an effect, but it is a different medium of storytelling.
Okay, we have another question from Eli. Where do you find your inspiration in this chaotic yet beautiful world? As he continues, where do you find your inspiration in the world filled with such turmoil?
I think that's a good question. I think it's because the world is so full of turmoil, and we get to a point in our lives, and I know that people that I work with, like Peter and Eli, that have been doing this for a long time, and other colleagues that we have throughout the visual effects and filmmaking industry, everybody is asking themselves a lot of questions right now, because not only is the world in turmoil, but our industry is in turmoil. There's, we have, productions that are going overseas. We have AI. We have, there's a reduction in work and all this talk of tariffs and things. So when you're dealing with that, you sometimes find in history or, in recent history, you find characters that also dealt with similar things. And you're like, by me telling the story of this person, I can talk about what's going on right now. So people look at the stories that we're telling with warrior saints and they say, well, I'm not really into religion that much or whatever. That's not the point. The point is, we didn't have Democrats and Republicans back then. You had political mobs, trust me. There were politics going on. The Roman Empire had the green and the blue faction. You could read up on it, okay, which influenced the whole the political scene. But people had religion. Religion was actually like the part of the ethnicity of people. You were, a German, and you had these gods, and then you were, a French Gaul, and you had this particular god. Romans had their, that was all just religion was woven into the ethnic fabric. So, the reason we're talking about this is because it relates to the world we're living in now, because we're talking about the tribalism that's pulling the world apart right now. And the fact that we want people to realize and take a look at the motivations of why people do things. Just dismissing people outright and saying, well, I don't agree with that person. I'm going to interpret them according to, somebody living in 2025. I'm going to judge somebody that was living in 100 AD. That's kind of nuts. You can't do that because that was a different culture back then. You have to understand that culture and why people did. And you'll find that there are similarities, but it's also a whole different world, a different way of thinking. So yeah, how do we find inspiration? I think it's trying to understand. It's trying to understand and make sense of it. And especially as Armenians or people realizing what's happening in Lebanon, what's happening in, right now in Ukraine or Russia and some of these other places. Why is all this going on? And they always bring in this, like Putin's there with the Orthodox, whatever, and they bring in, and then the patriarch of Russia goes to Azerbaijan, and they're like, broing down, and he's putting medals on, someone who's persecuting Christians, persecuting Armenian Christians. He's putting medals on that lady. It's like, we're trying to make sense of this. And so the inspiration is also survival. Like, we want to know what kind of world we're living in now. Like, what are people really thinking? What are they smoking, really? I mean, hard to understand.
So, Roger, we have one more question. I don't know if you want to answer that. We have 3 more minutes. I'm going to read it. When you were doing your initial research into the Armenian costumes and culture of the period, was there anything that particularly surprised you or stood out?
Yeah, the complexity and the vibrance, the whole period. When we watch movies, they're very gritty because they have to have a certain kind of look on screen. So they don't overemphasize the colors and so on, especially modern filmmaking. But back then, you realize, and this is again, the guys from the Order of the Boar, Peter Lyon and Phil Clark and those guys, Callum Forbes, they actually sat me down and said, okay, this is how people used to look back in the day. This is what they would wear. This is what, you were supposed to, if you were on the battlefield, you kind of showed your wealth even on the battlefield. So you wore these elaborate, shiny gold costumes. And part of the reason for that is because your men, your fighters needed to see that their general was still alive on the battlefield. So they didn't break and run. Because when the general went down, you saw the general go down. So they would wear things, the nobles, the people who are leading would wear things and really shiny. And it's also meant to impress the other side because not only were we showing up in numbers, but look how good we look. And of course, armor was very expensive. Those really armored riders, the cataphracts, they used to call them. Armenians had them, Persians, and the Romans had them, different other groups. The armor, the amount of money you would have to spend to get someone and his horse armored up and maintained on the battlefield with supplies, with extra horses, with your squires, people cleaning up the poop. I don't know. The amount of money that would go into it, it's like having a tank today. So if somebody showed up on a battlefield and had 5,000 of those kinds of knights, that's 5,000 tanks, basically. Light armored tanks, fine. The heavy tanks, elephants, right? So that's also what fascinated me. It's the elaborateness by which people would go to war because it was like, I mean, you might die in this amazing, beautiful armor, and it goes across different cultures too. You'll see that in the samurai in Japan as well later on. So that's what fascinated me, just the amount of variety.
Okay, thank you, Roger. We have
Yes.
one more question, but we don't have much time, but it's up
I'll
to
answer
you.
it fast. It's okay.
Yeah. If films are to entertain and documentaries are to educate, what is the best way to have both in order to have a wider audience?
Well, you got to follow the example, not to do a pitch again. You got to follow the example of what we adhere to in Warrior Saints. The lesson we finally realized was you have to have an entertainment aspect to it. Find out how you can tell a very short story to a specific group of people in a specific medium that then opens it up to wider and more expanded storytelling.
Thank you very much, Roger, for your great and inspiring and thought-provoking answers. Alena?
Thank you all for joining us today for this truly engaging and inspiring presentation. And heartfelt thank you to Roger for sharing not only his stunning artistic vision, but also his journey, one marked by perseverance, creativity, and commitment to storytelling. Roger's work challenges us to reflect on why we do what we do, and his journey reminds us of the power of persistence, even in the face of challenges. I think his films are more than just stories. They are powerful testaments to resilience, creativity, and cultural legacy. I encourage all of you to follow Roger's work, explore his films, and continue supporting voices that bring these important narratives to light. His storytelling offers a window into worlds that are rich, complex, and deeply human. On behalf of the UCLA Library, Nora and I thank you for being with us today. whether here in Los Angeles or joining us from far, including our friends in Armenia. Thank you again, and we look forward to seeing you at our future events. Thank you, Roger.
Thank you.